Teo sat in the back row of advanced survival theory class, taking notes in his small brown notebook. He was not the kind of student who raised his hand to answer questions. He was not the kind of student who made jokes with other cadets during lunch. He was not the kind of student that anyone really noticed at all, and that was fine with Teo. He had always been this way, quiet and small, watching more than speaking, learning more than showing. The Galactic Academy was a massive place with towers of metal and glass that reached up to the sky. Students from hundreds of different worlds walked through its halls every single day. Some students were tall and strong, some were smart and quick, some were famous even before they arrived at the academy. But Teo was none of these things. He was just a young man with dark hair, plain clothes, and a small voice that nobody ever asked to hear. In the front row of the classroom, Jinsu was showing off again. Jinsu was always showing off. He would solve problems that the teacher had not even finished writing on the board yet. He would interrupt the teacher to add his own ideas about how things worked. All the other students watched him with respect and envy. The teacher, Master Quan, would smile and nod at Jinsu's answers, and Jinsu would smile back, happy to be seen and praised. Next to Jinsu sat Hyunwoo, who was tall and strong and very popular. Everyone wanted to be friends with Hyunwoo. He was good at every single thing he tried. When they did practice drills, he always moved the fastest. When they did knowledge tests, he always got the best marks. When they had group projects, everyone wanted him on their team. Hyunwoo never seemed to doubt himself. He walked through the academy like someone who already knew he would become great. Behind them was Yoonji, who had muscles that showed she trained every single day. She could lift things that 3 other cadets could not move together. Her eyes were sharp and quick, always looking for danger, always ready to fight. Other students sometimes felt nervous when Eunji looked at them, but Eunji had a small smile that made you think she was not mean. She was just very, very strong. Near the window sat K-Som, who had a notebook full of maps and plans and drawings. K-Som was a thinker, always making strategies and planning the next move. In practice exercises, K-Som would find the best path through any problem. The teachers always said that K-Som had an excellent mind for tactics and solutions. People listened when K-Som spoke because his words always made sense and helped everyone win. And then there was Min-jun, who studied things about aliens and strange creatures and dangerous places. Min-jun knew facts about every world in the galaxy. He could tell you how many moons orbited Zex 9, or what kind of food grew on the ice planets, or what colors the sky turned at different times of day on 40 different worlds. When Min-jun talked about science and creatures, his eyes would light up and people would stop to listen. Tayo was not any of these things. He was just Tayo, in the back row, writing things down. The teacher was talking about how to survive in places with very bad air and dangerous animals. This was interesting to Tayo. He had read 3 books about this already, and he had made drawings of the creatures that lived on worlds with poison in the air. But he did not raise his hand to share this. Instead, he wrote more notes in his small brown notebook. A voice came on the teacher's communication device. Master Quan looked at the screen, and his face became more serious. He told the class that they needed to stop their lesson. He said that the academy had made an important choice today. He said that the Deathworld exam results were now ready. All the students sat up straight. The Deathworld exam was the biggest test that any student at the academy could take. It was not a test that you sat down to take at a desk with paper and pencils. No, it was much more real and much more dangerous than that. In the Deathworld exam, you got sent to a real dangerous planet. You had to survive on that planet for 10 days. You had to stay alive when there were creatures that could kill you, and poison in the air, and nothing to eat unless you found it yourself. Many students who went to take the Deathworld exam never came back. The success rate was very low. Maybe 5% of all students lived through it. Master Quan said that the Academy had chosen 5 students to take this exam this year. These 5 students would go together to a planet called Carpath 7. They would have some tools and clothes to protect them. They would have weapons to fight with. They would have a communicator to call for help if they needed it. But mostly, they would need to use their own thinking and strength and knowledge to stay alive. Master Quan started to read the names. He read Jinsu first. Jinsu nodded like he had already known his name would be called. The teacher read Hyunwoo, and Hyunwoo smiled like he was happy and not surprised. The teacher read Yoonji, and she just sat there very still, her sharp eyes not moving. The teacher read Kaesom, and Kaesom closed his notebook like he was ready to leave and go to the planet right now. Then Master Quan read one more name. He read Tae-o. Tae-o looked up from his notebook. He was sure that he had heard the name wrong, but all the students in the class had turned to look at the back row. They were looking at him. Hyunwoo's smile had become smaller. Jinsu was frowning a little bit. Even Kaesom was looking surprised. Master Quan repeated it again. Yes, the name was Tae-o. The Academy had chosen Tae-o to go to Carpath 7. Tae-o did not know why the Academy had chosen him. He thought maybe they had made a mistake. Maybe they had read a wrong name from their list. But he did not say this out loud. He just closed his brown notebook and waited for Master Quan to tell him what to do next. After the class was finished, Tae-o packed his things and started to walk out of the room. Hyunwoo came over to him. Hyunwoo was smiling, but it was not the same happy smile as before. "That is funny that you got chosen," Hyunwoo said. "You never do anything in class. You never even talk to anyone. How did you get selected for the most important exam?" Tae-o did not know what to say. He had asked himself the same question. He had gotten good marks on his tests, but so had many other students. He had done well in practice exercises, but he had never been the best. He had never raised his hand. He had never shown off his knowledge or made anyone remember his name. "I do not know," Tae-o said quietly. Hyunwoo waited like he was expecting Tae-o to say more, but Tae-o did not have anything else to say, so Hyunwoo walked away, shaking his head a little bit. That night, Tae-o stood outside his small room in the Academy building. He looked up at the stars in the black sky. One of those stars was Carpath 7, waiting very far away. He thought about all the students who had gone to that planet before him. He thought about how many of them had not come back home. He did not feel scared. Instead, he felt like maybe this was the moment he had been waiting for. Maybe all those years of watching and learning and taking notes had been getting him ready for something important. Maybe being quiet and small had taught him things that other students did not know yet. And maybe, just maybe, when he got to Carpath 7, everyone would finally understand why the Academy had chosen the quiet one. The shuttle came down through red clouds. Everything outside the windows was red and orange and brown, like the planet was on fire. Tae-o could see the ground getting closer and closer. It was empty and bad and wrong. Nothing grew there. Nothing looked like anything was alive there. It was like looking at a picture of what death looks like. Hyunwoo sat across from Tae-o in the shuttle. His face was calm and strong. Hyunwoo was the kind of person who did not get scared. Or if he did get scared, he did not let anyone see it. Yoonji sat next to the window, her strong arms crossed on her chest. She kept her eyes on the red ground below. Jinsu was checking his weapons again and again, making sure everything was ready. Kaesom was looking at a small map on his screen, his eyes moving back and forth like he was thinking about the best way to move and fight. Min-jun was writing things in a book, taking notes about what he could see from above. Nobody was talking very much. The shuttle started to shake a little bit as it moved through the thick air of Carpath 7. The air here was poisonous, so everyone had special masks that covered their faces and helped them breathe. The masks were made of material that was thin but very strong. They would protect them from the poison in the air. At least, that was what the teacher had told them. Hyunwoo looked at Tae-oh. "Are you ready?" he asked. Tae-oh nodded. Yes, he was ready. He did not know what he was ready for exactly, but he had prepared himself the best way he could. He had studied books about Karpath 7. He had read about the creatures that lived there. He had made notes about what kinds of plants grew in the red dirt. He had learned about the temperature and the winds and the storms that came sometimes. The shuttle touched down hard. Everything shook. Tae-oh heard a noise like metal bending. Then everything became quiet again. The door of the shuttle opened. Hot air came in, even through their protective masks. The 5 cadets moved quickly down the metal steps and onto the red ground of Karpath 7. Above them, the sky was red and thick with dust. There was no sun visible. There was no blue sky like on other planets. There was just red and orange and the feeling that you were standing in a place where you should not be. Hyunwoo turned to look at the shuttle behind them. It was still there, but people were moving inside it. The pilot was coming down the steps. Other teachers and workers were moving around the ship. They had maybe 30 minutes while the teachers made sure everything was safe and set up the communication equipment. "Look at this," Min-jun said. He was pointing at something on the ground. It was a creature, but it was not moving anymore. It was dead. The creature was very big and had a hard shell on its body. It had claws and teeth that looked like they could cut through steel. But something had killed it. Something had broken its body and left it here. "That means there are bigger things here than just scavengers," Kae-sam said quietly. "Something that can kill creatures this big." Hyunwoo looked serious now. "Then we need to be careful. Stay together. Stay ready." Yoonji had her weapon out already. She was the kind of person who was always ready to fight. "I will protect us," she said. "Do not worry." The ground started to shake. First it was small, like something far away was moving. Then it became bigger. It became like the whole world was moving. Tae-oh looked at the red ground and he could see cracks appearing. The cracks were getting bigger and bigger. "Seismic activity," Min-jun said. "The planet is not stable." The shaking became very strong. Everyone fell down. Tae-oh's face hit the red dirt. Dust came into his mouth even through his mask. He could hear Yoonji shouting something. He could hear Jin-soo calling for help. He could hear the sound of metal breaking, the emergency beacon. That was what was breaking. Tae-oh understood this, even though nobody had told him. The seismic shaking was so strong that it was breaking their communication equipment. It was breaking the machine that would tell the academy where they were. It was breaking the machine that could call for help. Everything stopped shaking. Tae-oh lifted his head up. The air was full of red dust. He could not see very far. He could hear people moving and breathing hard. He could hear someone crying a little bit. That was probably Jin-soo. Jin-soo was not the kind of person who could handle fear very well. "Is everyone okay?" Hyunwoo's voice came through the dust. He sounded like he was trying to stay calm, but Tae-oh could hear the worry in his voice. One by one, people said yes. They were okay. Their bodies still worked. Their weapons still worked. But something was very wrong. "The supplies," Kae-sam said. "The supplies we needed. Where are they?" Nobody could answer this question. The dust was still too thick to see anything. Tae-oh started to move, walking slowly through the dust. His hands were out in front of him so he would not crash into rocks. He walked for maybe 50 steps. Then he saw something. He saw food packages and water containers and medical supplies and tools. They were scattered all over the ground. Some of them were broken. Some of them were in a big pile at the bottom of a deep hole in the ground. "Over here," he said quietly. Nobody heard him. He said it again, louder this time. "Over here." "The supplies are over here!" The others came toward his voice. They found the supplies. They started to pick up what they could carry. That was when they heard the sound. It was a sound like nothing Tae-oh had ever heard before. It was high and low at the same time, like a bird, but also like something else. Like something very big was calling from somewhere in the red dust. Yun-Woo's body became tight. His weapon came up. "Get ready," he said. The dust started to move. Something big was coming toward them. Teo could see shapes in the red air. He could see the outline of bodies. There were many of them. 3, maybe 4. They had legs and claws and mouths full of teeth. They looked like monsters from a bad dream. "Defensive formation," Yun-Woo shouted. "Get to higher ground." Everyone ran. Jinsu and Eunji were fast. Minjun was fast. Kaesum was fast. Teo was not the fastest, but he was fast enough. Behind them, the creatures made more sounds. The sounds were angry. The sounds were hungry. They climbed up a rocky hill. Below them, the creatures were getting closer. Hyun-Woo and Yoonji started to shoot. The weapons made loud noises and bright lights, but the creatures did not stop. If anything, they moved faster. "Keep moving," Hyun-Woo said. "We need to find shelter." They ran for what felt like hours. They climbed and jumped and moved through the red dust. The creatures followed them. Once, Jinsu almost fell down. Yoonji grabbed him and pulled him back up. They kept running. Finally, they found a cave. It was big and dark, and it went down into the ground. They ran inside. The creatures did not follow them into the darkness. Maybe they did not like the dark. Maybe they did not like something else. But they stopped chasing. The 5 cadets sat on the hard ground of the cave, breathing hard. Everyone was tired. Everyone was scared. The emergency beacon was broken. Nobody knew where they were, and they had been on Carpath 7 for maybe 2 hours. Hyun-Woo looked at each person. He looked at Jinsu, who was shaking a little bit. He looked at Yoonji, who was still ready to fight. He looked at Kaesum, who was trying to think about what they should do. He looked at Minjun, who was still taking notes. And then he looked at Tayo. "You found the supplies," Hyun-Woo said to Tayo. "How did you know where to look?" Tayo did not answer right away. He was thinking about something. He was thinking about the creatures. He was thinking about how they had moved. He was thinking about what they were doing. "The creatures were not really hunting us," Tayo said quietly. "They were curious. They wanted to see what we were." Hyun-Woo frowned. "What do you mean? They were chasing us." "Yes," Tayo said. "But they could have caught us. They were faster and stronger. They just wanted to chase us. They were testing us. They were not trying to kill us yet." Nobody said anything. Tayo sat in the darkness of the cave, and he thought about Carpath 7. He thought about what other things he would need to learn to survive in this place. And he thought about the quiet knowledge he had inside him, the kind of knowledge that only came from reading and watching and never speaking. The cave was cold and dark, and it smelled like dead things. The 5 cadets sat in the middle of the floor, close to each other. Hyun-Woo had made a small fire using some material that burned hot but did not make much smoke. The fire was not very big, but it was enough to see each other's faces. Everyone looked tired and scared. Jinsu was the first person to speak. "We are going to die here," he said. "The emergency beacon is broken. Nobody knows where we are. The creatures outside will kill us when we leave this cave." "Stop talking like that," Hyun-Woo said. But his voice was not strong. His voice had doubt in it. Yoonji was still holding her weapon. She had not put it down since they ran into the cave. "I can fight the creatures," she said. "I am stronger than most of them. If we leave in the morning, I can fight them and protect everyone." Kaesum was looking at his broken map device. It did not work anymore. The seismic activity had broken it. "Without a map, we cannot find the extraction point," he said slowly. "We cannot know where the Academy will send a rescue team." Minjun was looking at the cave walls. He had taken out his small light device and was looking at the rocks. "This cave is very old," he said. "These rocks have been here for millions of years. The creatures we saw, they probably live near here. They have hunted in these areas for a very long time." Everyone was quiet again. Teo was still sitting, listening to everyone talk. He was not saying anything, but his mind was working hard. He was thinking about the books he had read. He was thinking about the information in his brown notebook. He was thinking about creatures and caves and survival. The night became very dark. Outside the cave, they could hear sounds. Not the sounds of the creatures that had chased them. Other sounds. Strange sounds. Sounds of animals and wind and the planet itself moving and changing. Hyunwoo tried to make plans. "Tomorrow morning we move toward higher ground," he said. "From higher ground we can see more of the planet. We can find water and food. We can look for places where the Academy might send a rescue." Nobody said that this plan was good, but nobody said it was bad either. It was just something to do. It was just a way to feel like they were doing something instead of just waiting to die. Morning came very slowly. The sky turned from black to dark red to lighter red. The dust in the air made everything look strange and empty. The 5 cadets prepared themselves. They checked their weapons. They put on their protective masks again. They drank a little bit of water from the supplies that Teo had found. As they were getting ready to leave, Hyunwoo looked at the supplies again. He was counting them. His face became very serious. "We do not have much food," he said. "Maybe 3 days of food if we eat very little. Maybe 4 days if we eat only a very small amount each day." "Then we need to find more food," Kaesam said. "We need to find plants or animals that we can eat." "We need to be careful," Minjun said. "We do not know what is safe to eat on this planet. The wrong food could poison us. Many creatures on dangerous planets have poison in their meat." Teo opened his brown notebook. He had made drawings of plants that grew on Carpath 7. He had written down which plants were safe to eat and which plants were poison. He had studied this for many weeks before the exam. "There is a plant that grows near water," he said quietly. "It looks like a small tree with purple leaves. The fruit from this plant is safe to eat. I have read about it in old research papers." Everyone looked at Teo like they were seeing him for the first time. "How do you know about Carpath 7? Hyunwoo asked. "I read about it," Teo said simply. "The Academy has many books and research papers. I read them." "When did you have time to read all of that?" Jin-soo asked. He did not sound happy. He sounded like he was angry that Teo knew something he did not know. "I read every day," Teo said. "Instead of talking to people or playing games, I read." They left the cave and started to move. Hyunwoo walked at the front. Yoonji walked beside him, her weapon ready. Minjun and Jin-soo walked in the middle. Kaesam walked at the back. Teo walked with Kaesam, and he kept showing Kaesam drawings from his notebook. The drawings showed what the land should look like if they were moving in the right direction. It took them all day to walk to a place where water was. The water came from the ground and made a small pool. It was dirty water, but it was water. Minjun tested it with a special device. He said it was safe to drink after they used tablets to clean it. And then they found the plants. The plants with purple leaves, just like Teo had drawn in his notebook. The plants with fruit that was safe to eat. Yoonji picked the fruit and gave it to everyone. They ate slowly. The fruit tasted strange, but it was food. It was something to fill their empty stomachs. On the 3rd day, Jin-soo became sick. His face turned green. His body felt very hot. He could not walk very far anymore. Minjun looked at him and said that he had an infection from something. An infection from bacteria or poison that had gotten inside his body during the run from the creatures. "He will die," Minjun said. It was a simple statement, said without any emotion. "No," Teo said. He was looking at his notebook again. He had written about the medicines of Carpath 7. He had written about plants and rocks and special crystals that could help with infection. He led them to a place where there were rocks with special colors. The rocks were blue and they had a pattern like ice. Teo took one of the rocks and broke it into a powder. He mixed the powder with water from the pool and made it into a paste. "What are you doing?" Hyunwoo asked. "This will help," Teo said. He put the paste on Jinsu's skin where the infection was the worst. Then he told Jinsu to rest. By the next morning, Jinsu was better. His fever was gone. He could stand up and walk again. His skin was no longer green. Everyone looked at Teo like he was a different person now. Kei-sam came and sat next to him. "You knew about the plants. You knew about the water. You knew about the medicine. How did you know all of this?" "I prepared," Teo said. "When I was in class not talking, I was learning. When I was sitting alone, I was reading. I thought maybe one day I would need to know these things. I thought maybe one day I would need to be useful." "You knew you would come here?" Yunji asked. "No," Teo said, "but I knew that knowledge was the most important thing. Knowledge does not make noise. Knowledge does not show off. Knowledge just waits quietly until someone needs it." Hyunwoo sat down on the red ground. He was looking at Teo like he was trying to understand something very difficult. "The academy chose you for a reason," he said slowly. "The teachers knew. They knew what you had studied. They knew you were prepared." Teo did not answer. He was looking at the red sky and thinking about how many more days they had left to survive. He was thinking about the creatures that had chased them. He was thinking about the other dangers that were waiting for them on this dead planet. But for the first time since they had crashed, Teo did not feel scared. He felt like maybe, just maybe, he was exactly where he needed to be. On the 5th day, they found the nest. It was an accident. Nobody was looking for it. They were just walking and trying to find a place to sleep when Unji's foot stepped on something that was not rock. It was soft. It was moving. When Unji looked down, she saw that the ground was not really ground. It was made of material that looked like it was built by something, like something had created this place on purpose. Teo realized it very quickly. He had read about this in his research. "It is a hive," he said. His voice was very quiet. "We are standing on a hive. We are standing on top of the home of a species that lives together in groups." Before anyone could move or say anything, everything changed. The ground started to move and shake, not like the seismic activity from before, but like it was alive and moving on purpose. And then they came. Thousands of them. Hundreds of thousands of them. The creatures were not like the ones that had chased them before. These creatures were smaller, but they were everywhere. They had bodies that were hard like shells. They had many legs. They had mouths that could cut and bite. And they were coming out of the ground all around them, coming up through holes and cracks, coming up from below like a wave that was made of teeth and claws and anger. "Run!" Hyunwoo screamed. It was the first time that Teo had heard real fear in Hyunwoo's voice. Real, true fear. They started to run. Behind them, the ground was moving and alive with creatures. The creatures were making sounds that were loud and terrible, sounds like clicking and screaming at the same time, sounds that made your bones want to shake. Yunji was shooting at the creatures with her weapon. The weapon made bright lights and loud noises. Each time she shot, some of the creatures fell down, but there were so many more, so many that killing 100 did not even make a difference. There were still millions coming. Jinsu was running very fast. His legs were moving as fast as they could move, but he was not fast enough. One of the creatures caught his leg and he fell down hard onto the red ground. He screamed. He was trying to get away, but his leg would not work right. Kei-sam tried to go back and help Jinsu, but there were too many creatures. They came between Kei-sam and Jinsu. Yunji grabbed Kei-sam and pulled him away. "We cannot help him if we are dead too," she shouted. But then something happened. Teo was running, and he was not thinking about where to run, but his mind was working. His mind was remembering something from his books, a fact about hive creatures, a pattern that he had read about in old research. "Follow me," he shouted. His small, quiet voice somehow cut through all the noise and fear. He started to run toward a cliff. Everyone thought he was crazy. They were running away from the creatures, not toward a cliff where they could fall and die. "Trust me," Teo shouted. There was something in his voice, something that made Hyunwoo and Yoonji and Minjun follow him without asking more questions. Kaesum came too, still trying to help Jinsu move even though Jinsu was hurt and limping. They got to the cliff edge. Below them was darkness. They could not see what was down there. The creatures were getting so close that Teo could feel their breath on his back. He could hear their feet hitting the ground. He could hear them getting ready to attack. "Jump!" Teo yelled. "We will die!" Jinsu screamed. But Teo jumped. And when Teo jumped, Hyunwoo jumped too. And when Hyunwoo jumped, the others jumped. Even Jinsu jumped, even though his leg was hurt and he was scared. They fell through darkness. The wind hit their faces. They were falling down into nothing, and then they landed in water. Cold water. Dark water. Water so cold that it took Teo's breath away. They splashed and kicked and tried to move in the dark. Above them, they could hear the creatures. The creatures were screaming and making sounds, but the creatures did not jump. The creatures stayed on the cliff above them. "What is this?" Minjun asked. His voice was shaking from the cold. "A cave system," Teo said. His teeth were chattering, but his mind was still clear. "Below the hive there are caves, underground caves that the hive creatures do not go into. They do not like caves. They like open space where they can see. They do not like caves." Hyunwoo was treading water next to Teo. His strong body was moving to keep him above the water. "How did you know about this?" he asked. "I read about it," Teo said. "The hive creatures of Karpath 7 only go where they can see the sky. They cannot go into darkness. They are afraid of darkness." They swam to the side of the cave. There was a rocky place they could climb to. It was wet and slippery, but it was above the water. They pulled themselves up slowly, their bodies tired and cold. Above them, they could still hear the creatures. They could hear them screaming and making angry sounds. But they could not reach down into the cave. They could not follow. Hyunwoo sat on the wet rock, and he did not say anything for a long time. He just sat there, breathing hard, his powerful body shaking from cold and from being close to death. "You just saved all of us," Kaesum said to Teo. His voice was quiet and respectful and surprised all at the same time. "You saved all of us from the hive." Yoonji was checking Jinsu's leg. It was hurt, but not broken. She wrapped it with material from her bag. "The quiet one," she said. "The quiet one in the back of the class. You just saved all of us." Minjun was looking at the cave walls. Even in the darkness, even after everything that had happened, he was still a scientist. He was still looking at things and learning. "These caves go deep," he said. "Very deep. We could stay here for a long time." Teo was sitting in the darkness and the cold, and he was thinking about how many more days they had to survive. He was thinking about how he had known about the caves without anyone telling him. He was thinking about how his quiet life, his reading, his taking notes, his not talking to anyone at the academy, had saved everyone's life. In the darkness, he could hear the others breathing. He could hear them slowly getting less afraid. He could hear them starting to believe that maybe they would live through this. And Teo realized something. Being quiet, being small, being ignored, being the person in the back of the class that nobody noticed. It had not been a bad thing. It had been a gift. It had been preparation for something important. It had been preparation for this moment. In this dark cave on a dead planet, when knowing things that nobody else knew was the difference between living and dying. The caves were dark and cold, and they seemed to go on forever. The 5 cadets moved slowly through them, their hands on the walls, feeling their way forward because they could not see very much. Teo had his small light device in his hand, but the light was weak, and the caves were so big that the light did not reach very far. Minjun kept stopping to look at the rocks around them. He was fascinated by everything he saw. He was writing notes and making drawings. "This cave system is incredible," he kept saying. "The geological patterns, the mineral formations, I have never seen anything like this." But nobody had time to care about minerals right now. They cared about survival. They cared about food and water and shelter. Jinsu's leg was still hurt, and he had to move slowly. Yunji was helping him, her strong arm around his waist, helping him move forward through the darkness. After maybe 2 hours of walking through the cave, Teo noticed something. The smell in the cave was different. It was fresher. It was like air was moving, like the cave was connecting to something else. He walked faster, and the others followed him. Then they found it, a large underground lake. The water was clear and blue and beautiful. It looked like it did not belong in this dark, dead place. It looked like magic. "Fresh water," Minjun said, testing it with his device. "This water is clean. It is safe to drink." They drank. They drank so much that their stomachs felt full for the first time since they had come to Karpath 7. Hyunwoo lay down on the ground next to the water and closed his eyes. Yunji sat with her back against the rock wall, her weapon still in her hand, but her body finally starting to relax. "We should rest here," Kaesam said. "We have water. We have shelter. We are safe in the dark where the hive creatures cannot find us." They made a camp beside the underground lake. They used rocks to make a fire pit. They found some materials in the cave that could burn. The fire did not give much light, but it gave some warmth. It made them feel less alone in the darkness. It was while they were sitting around the small fire that Hyunwoo started asking questions. He asked Teo about the books. He asked about the research. He asked about everything that Teo had read and learned while sitting alone and not talking to anyone. "I started reading when I was very young," Teo explained. His voice was still quiet, but everyone was listening now. Really listening. Not like they were ignoring him, not like they thought he was unimportant. They were actually listening. "My family was not rich. We did not have many things, but we had books. My father brought me books about space and science and different worlds. I read every day. When I was old enough to come to the academy, I kept reading." "But why did you not tell anyone?" Jinsu asked. He did not sound angry anymore. He sounded curious. He sounded like he genuinely wanted to understand. "If you knew so much, why did you stay so quiet?" "Knowledge is not about talking," Teo said. "Knowledge is about knowing. If I talked all the time like Jinsu and Hyunwoo did, I would have had less time to read. If I tried to show off what I knew, I would have spent time on things that did not matter. I just wanted to learn. That was all." Minjun was nodding like he understood. "You were not trying to be better than anyone else," he said. "You were just trying to learn everything." "Yes," Teo said. "That is correct." Yunji looked at Teo with respect. "In my training, they always teach us that the strongest ones lead, that the ones with the most power make the decisions. But you are not the strongest. You do not have the most power, but you are the one who knows what to do. You are the one who saves us." "Knowledge is strength too," Teo said. "It is just a different kind of strength." Over the next 2 days, they stayed in the cave system. They explored more and found other caves. They found more water sources. They found more safe plants that they could eat. Teo's notebook guided them to every place they needed to go. Every time Teo opened his notebook and showed them a drawing or explained something he had read, the others would listen carefully. Hyunwoo even asked Tae-o to teach him. He asked him to explain the different creatures and plants. He asked him about the patterns he had noticed in the Karpath 7 research. For the first time, Hyunwoo was not the teacher. He was the student. And Taeo was the teacher. K-Sam was working with Taeo to make a new map. K-Sam's device was broken, but Taeo had maps in his notebook. Taeo had drawn the geography of Carpath 7 from the research papers. Together they made a new map using materials from the cave. "Here," Taeo said, pointing at his drawing. "The extraction point should be here. This is where the Academy would send a rescue team. This is the safest place to wait." "How far?" K-Sam asked. 3 more days, Taeo said. "If we move carefully and if nothing stops us, we can be there in 3 days." On the morning of the 8th day, they left the cave. They carried water bottles and food that they had collected. They had weapons and light devices. And they had something else now. They had faith in Taeo. They had realized that the quiet student in the back of the class was not boring or unimportant. He was important. He was the most important person here. As they climbed out of the caves and back onto the surface of Carpath 7, the red sky seemed less scary. The creatures seemed less dangerous. They knew how to survive now. They knew that even when things looked impossible, they had someone who knew what to do. Hyunwoo walked next to Taeo as they moved across the red ground. "The Academy was right about you," he said. "What do you mean?" Taeo asked. "When they chose you," Hyunwoo said. They knew that the quiet ones are the strongest. They knew that while we were all trying to be the best and the fastest and the smartest, you were actually becoming the best and the fastest and the smartest. You were just doing it quietly." Taeo did not know what to say to this, so he just walked forward, his brown notebook in his hand, moving toward the extraction point that he had marked in his map. Behind him, the others followed. They followed the quiet student from the back of the class. They followed him because he had saved their lives. They followed him because they believed in him. And in his quiet way, Taeo believed in himself too.